Now to water had that Ainu, whom the elves call Ulmo, turned his thought, and of all most deeply was he instructed by Iluvatar in music, but of the airs and winds Manwe most had pondered, who is the noblest of the Ainur. Of the fabric of earth had Ule thought, to whom Iluvatar had given skill and knowledge scarce less than to Melkor. But the delight and pride of Ule is the deed of making, and in the thing made, and neither in possession nor in his own mastery, wherefore he gives and hoards not, and is free from care, passing ever on to some new work. And in this work, the chief part was taken by Manwe and Ule and Ulmo, but Melkor too was there from the first, and he meddled in all that was done, turning it, if he might, to his own desires and purposes, and he kindled great fires. When therefore earth was yet young and full of flame, Melkor coveted it, and he said to the other Valar, "This shall be my own kingdom, and I name it unto myself." But Manwe was the brother of Melkor in the mind of Iluvatar, and he was the chief instrument of the second theme that Iluvatar had raised up against the discord of Melkor. And he called unto himself many spirits, both greater and less, and they came down into the fields of Arda and aided Manwe, lest Melkor should hinder the fulfillment of their labor forever, and earth should wither ere it flowered. And Manwe said unto Melkor, "This kingdom thou shalt not take for thy own. Wrong fully, for many others have labored here no less than thou." And there was strife between Melkor and the other Valar, and for that time Melkor withdrew and departed to other regions, and did there what he would, but he did not put the desire of the kingdom of Arda from his heart. There we start to understand a little bit about who Manwe is. Manwe and Melkor were brethren in the thought of Iluvatar. The mightiest of those Ainur who came into the world was in his beginning Melkor, but Manwe is dearest to Iluvatar and understands most clearly his purposes. He was appointed to be, in the fullness of time, the first of all kings, lord of the realm of Arda, and ruler of all that dwell therein. In Arda, his delight is in the winds and the clouds, and in all the regions of the air, from the heights to the depths, from the utmost borders of the vale of Arda to the breezes that blow in the grass. Sulimo, he is surnamed, Lord of the breath of Arda. All swift birds, strong of wing, he loves, and they come and go at his bidding. With Manwe dwells Varda, Lady of the Stars, who knows all the regions of Ea. And too great is her beauty to be declared in the words of men or of elves, for the light of Iluvatar lives still in her face. In light is her power and her joy. Out of the deeps of Ea she came to the aid of Manwe. For Melkor she knew from before the making of the music and rejected him, and he hated her and feared her more than all others whom Eru made. Manwe and Varda are seldom parted, and they remain in Valinor. Their halls are above the everlasting snow. Upon Oilesso, the uttermost tower of Taniquetil, the tallest of all the mountains upon earth. When Manwe there ascends his throne and looks forth, if Varda is beside him, he sees further than all other eyes, through mist and through darkness and over the leagues of the sea. And if Manwe is with her, Varda hears more clearly than all other ears the sound of voices that cry from east to west, from the hills and the valleys, and from the dark places that Melkor had made upon earth. Of all the great ones who dwell in this world, the elves hold Varda most in reverence and love. Elbereth they name her, and they call upon her name out of the shadows of Middle-earth, and uplift it in song at the rising of the stars. Ulmo is the lord of the waters, and he is alone. He dwells nowhere long, but moves as he will in all the deep waters. He is next in might to Manwe, and Manwe and Ulmo love brothers. These are the names of the Valar and the Valier, and here is told in brief their likeness, such as the Eldar beheld them in Amen, but fair and noble as were the forms in which they were manifest to the children of Iluvatar, they were but a veil upon their beauty and their power. And if little is here said of all that the Eldar once knew, that is as nothing compared with their true being, which goes back into regions and ages far beyond our thought. Among them 9 were of chief power and reverence, but 1 is removed from their number, and 8 remain. The Aratar, the high ones of Arda, Manwe and Varda, Ulmo, Yavanna, and Aule, and Mandos, and Nienna, and Orome. Though Manwe is their king, and holds their allegiance under Eru, Iluvatar, in majesty they are peers, surpassing beyond compare all others, whether of the Valar and the Maiar, or of any other order that Iluvatar has sent into Ea. And here we have chief among the Maiar of Valinor, whose names are remembered in the histories of the Eldar days, are Ilmare, the handmaid of Varda, and Eanwe, the banner bearer and herald of Manwe, whose might in arms is surpassed by none in Arda. But all of the Maiar, Ossi, and Yunin are best known to the children of Iluvatar. So Manwe had a like a banner bearer and a herald that would send the messages to the beings in Arda, and he was known as Eanwe. And of the enemies at this point here, we learn that Melkor and Manwe are sworn enemies. Last of all is set in the name of Melkor, he who arises in might. But that name he has forfeited, and the Noldar, who among the elves suffered most from his malice, will not utter it, and they name him Morgoth, the dark enemy of the world. Great might was given to him by Iluvatar, and he was coeval with Manwe. He was equal in powers with Manwe. In the powers and knowledge of all the other Valar he had part, but he turned them to evil purposes, and squandered his strength in violence and tyranny, for he coveted Arda and all that was in it, desiring the kingship of Manwe and dominion over the realms of his peers. So that is the end of the Valaquenta, and I read you a little bit of the music of the Ainur. And that shows you who Manwe is, closest to Eru Iluvatar in mind and thought, representing the vicegerent of Middle-earth, the one that sees over all the other Valar of Valinor, and also keeps a close watch on Middle-earth and all the other beings who live on it. So I wanted to read you that part there, and then in the beginning days, this is where we start to see Manwe's actions. This part here, in the beginning days. But Manwe Sulamo, highest and holiest of the Valar, sat among the borders of Amen, forsaking not in his thought the outer lands, for his throne was set in majesty upon the pinnacle of Taniquetel, the highest of the mountains of the world, standing upon the margin of the sea. Spirits in the shape of hawks and eagles flew ever to and from his halls, and their eyes could see to the depths of the sea and pierce the hidden caverns beneath the world. Thus they brought word to him of well nigh all that passed in Arda. Yet some things were hidden even from the eyes of Manwe and the servants of Manwe, for where Melkor sat in his dark thought, impenetrable shadows lay. Manwe has no thought of his own honor, and is not jealous of his power, but rules all to peace. The Vanyar he loves best of all the elves, and of him they received song and poetry, for poetry is the delight of Manwe, and the song of words is his music. His raiment is blue, and blue is the fire of his eyes, and his scepter is of sapphire, which the Noldar wrought for him. And he was appointed to be the vicegerent of Iluvatar, king of the world of Valar and elves and men, and the chief defense against the evil of Melkor. With Manwe dwelt Varda, the most beautiful, she who in the Sindarian tongue is named Elbereth, queen of the Valar, maker of the stars, and with them were a great host of spirits in blessedness. What I absolutely love about this description here of Manwe is that he was king of everything. You know, he was the ruler basically of all of Middle Earth, but yet he was so humble. You know, some of our earthly rulers can take a lesson from Manwe in the way that he rules others. There was no jealousy, there was no possessiveness within his power. He was simply in this place of sovereignty, and he had no thought of his own honor. That's amazing, because when you think about some of the royalty on our earth, sometimes they really take into consideration their places of power. But Manwe didn't. He ruled with a state of service to Iluvatar, where all things extend from, and these you can go back into my other video to learn more about the creation of Arda and who Eru Iluvatar is. And when we think about Manwe in a deeper way, and we think about Melkor, we see the light side and the shadow side play out. And we can apply this to our own life. So Manwe at times is not able to penetrate to the heart of darkness of Melkor, because the light side sometimes is not able to see the evil, because it itself is so full of pure intention, it would have a hard time to comprehend evil. And Manwe has no ill intentions. And so he's so high and noble in his behaviorisms and how he rules Arda, he doesn't quite understand Melkor's darker intentions for power. And so we have this imbalance of the light side and the shadow self, which Melkor represents to Manwe. And so it's an important lesson for us to be aware of all aspects of ourselves, and to not let our shadow selves hide and let our light side just be kind of unable to see what our shadow self is actually, you know, devising and scheming, which sounds really funny because we're not really split in that way. But in the way that we can understand Manwe and Melkor's relationship, that's how we can understand the difference between them. They are completely equal in power. Melkor has just as much might and strength as Manwe does, but it's how they each use their power given to them that really counts. And that's kind of the message that Tolkien was trying to give us, is that it's not about the strength of the power, it's about how you use it and how you apply it to either help others or be in service to this greater collective that we all come from, known as Eru to the elves and to the Valar. I will keep going here. Now, this one is a very good point to show the leadership of Manwe even over the other Valar. And so this is an indication of him speaking to Yavanna and this conversation that takes place. And Yavanna, you will learn in other videos that I do, but Yavanna is the Valar of nature and all things that grow and bloom on earth. And so this is their conversation here. This is in the chapter of Aule and Yavanna. Since they were come in the days of the power of Melkor, Aule made the dwarves strong to endure. Therefore they are stone hard, stubborn, fast in friendship and in enmity, and they suffer toil and hunger and hurt of body more hardly than all other speaking peoples. And they live long, far beyond the span of men, yet not forever. Aforetime it was held among the elves in Middle Earth that dying the dwarves return to the earth and the stone of which they were made. Yet that is not their own belief, for they say that Aule the Maker, whom they call Mahal, cares for them and gathers them to Mondos in halls set apart, and that he declared to their fathers of old that Iluvatar will hallow them and give them a place among the children in the end. Then their part shall be to serve Aule and to aid him in the remaking of Arda after the last battle. They say also that the seven fathers of the dwarves return to live again in their own kin and to bear once more their ancient names, of whom Doran was the most renowned in after ages, father of that kindred most friendly to the elves, whose mansions were at Khazad-dûm. Now, when Aule labored in the making of the dwarves, he kept this work hidden from the other Valar. But at last he opened his mind to Yavanna and told her of all that had come to pass. That Yavanna said to him, Eru is merciful. Now I see that thy heart rejoice, as indeed it may, for thou hast received not only forgiveness, but bounty. Yet because thou hidest this thought from me until its achievement, thy children will have little love for the things of my love. They will love first the things made by their own hands, as doth their father. They will delve in the earth, and the things that grow and live upon the earth they will not heed. Many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron without pity. But Aule answered, That shall also be true of the children of Iluvatar, for they will eat and they will build, and though the things of thy realm have worth in themselves, and would have worth if no children were to come, yet Eru will give them dominion, and they shall use all that they find in Arda. Though not by the purpose of Eru, without respect or without gratitude. Not unless Melkor darken their hearts, said Yavanna. And she was not appeased, but grieved in heart, fearing what might be done upon Middle-earth in days to come. Therefore she went before Manwe, and she did not betray the counsel of Aule, but she said, King of Arda, is it true, as Aule hath said to me, that the children, when they come, shall have dominion over all the things of my labor, to do as they will therewith? It is true, said Manwe, but why dost thou ask? For thou hast no need of the teaching of Aule. Then Yavanna was silent and looked into her own thought, and she answered, Because my heart is anxious, thinking of the days to come. All my works are dear to me. Is it not enough that Melkor should have marred so many? Shall nothing that I have devised be free from the dominion of others? If thou hast thy will, what wouldst thou reserve? Said Manwe. Of all thy realm, what dost thou hold dearest? All have their worth, said Yavanna, and each contributes to the worth of the others. But the Kelvar can flee or defend themselves, whereas the Olvar that grow cannot. So the Kelvar is the Elven name for animals. That's what she's calling. The Kelvar are the animals, and the Olvar are the flora, basically all of the things that grow and bloom. And among these I hold trees dear. Long in the growing, swift shall they be in the felling, and unless they pay toil with fruit upon bough, little mourned in their passing. So I see in my thought, would that the trees might speak on behalf of all things that have roots, and punish those that wrong them. And then Manwe says, "This is a strange thought," said Manwe. "Yet it was in the song," said Yavanna, "for while thou wert in the heavens, and with Ulmo built the clouds and poured out the rains, I lifted up the branches of great trees to receive them. And some sang to Iluvatar amid the wind and the rain." Then Manwe sat silent, and the thought of Yavanna that she had put into his heart grew and unfolded, and it was beheld by Iluvatar that it seemed to Manwe that the song rose once more about him, and he heeded now many things therein that though he had heard them, he had not heeded before. And at last the vision was renewed, but it was not now remote, for he was himself within it. And yet he saw that all was upheld by the hand of Iluvatar, and the hand entered in, and from it came forth many wonders that had until then been hidden from him in the hearts of the Ainur. Then Manwe awoke, and he went down to Yavanna upon Elzahar, and he sat beside her beneath the two trees, and Manwe said, "O Kementari, Eru hath spoken, saying, do then any of the Valar suppose that I did not hear all the song, even the least sound of the least voice? Behold, when the children awake, then the thought of Yavanna will awake also, and it will summon spirits from afar, and they will go among the Kelvar and the Olvar, and some will dwell therein and be held in reverence, and their just anger shall be feared. For a time, while the firstborn are in their power, and while the secondborn are young. But dost thou not now remember, Kementari, that thy thought sang not always alone? Did not thy thought and mine meet also, so that we took wing together like great birds that soar above the clouds, that also shall come to be by the heed of Iluvatar, and before the children awake there shall go forth with wings like the wind of the eagles of the lords of the west?" Then Yavanna was glad, and she stood up, reaching her arms towards the heavens, and she said, "I shall climb the trees of Kementari, that the eagles of the king may house therein." But Manwe rose also, and it seemed that he stood to such a height that his voice came down to Yavanna as from the paths of the winds. "Nay," he said, "only the trees of Aule will be tall enough. In the mountains the eagles shall house, and hear the voices of those who call upon us. But in the forest shall walk the shepherds of the trees." Then Manwe and Yavanna parted for that time. And Yavanna returned to Aule, and he was in his smithy, pouring molten metal into a mold. "Eru is bountiful," she said. "Now let thy children beware, for there shall walk a power in the forest, whose wrath they will arouse at their peril." There you go. So now we see this beautiful connection that Manwe had to Eru. And all Eru had to do in order to lead the other Valar was close his eyes And it even said that Manwe awoke. He almost like went into a dream state in order to connect back to Eru and receive back the thought. It's channeling the higher self. And when he brought that message back to Yavanna, and her name is also Kementari, he told her the message from Eru, the one mind that connects them all. And so this really beautiful relationship was created in the idea that she said, your trees can house your birds, and we can build this Arda together, even knowing that, some trees are going to, be cut down, but at the danger of humans, and also the dwarves, if they cut down the trees, they have to know that they will awaken the spirits of the trees, known as the Ents. So now we see how Manwe rules the other Valar. He does not go by his personal, subjective opinion. He actually reaches towards the one of the universe and listens to that higher self and gets that message and then brings it back to the other Valar. So that is why he's kind of this messenger of Eru, and he can help guide the other Valar, and the other Valar come to him for guidance. So I thought that was a really great way of seeing how Manwe rules others. Now, this is where we start to see Manwe's decisions in his judgment and what makes him such a fair judge. Now, even when Feanor and the craftsmen of the Noldar worked with delight, foreseeing no end to their labors, and while the sons of Indus grew to their full stature, the noontide of Valinor was drawing to its close, for it came to pass that Melkor, as the Valar had decreed, completed the term of his bondage, dwelling for 3 ages in the Duras of Mandos alone. At length, as Manwe had promised, he was brought again before the thrones of the Valar. Then he looked upon their glory and their bliss, and envy was in his heart. He looked upon the children of Iluvatar that sat at the feet of the mighty, and hatred filled him. He looked upon the wealth of bright gems, and he lusted for them, but he hid his thoughts and postponed his vengeance. Before the gates of Valmar, Melkor abased himself at the feet of Manwe, and sued for pardon, vowing that if he might be made only the least of the free people of Valinor, he would aid the Valar in all their works, and most of all in the healing of the many hurts that he had done to the world. And Nienna aided his prayer, but Mandos was silent. Then Manwe granted him pardon, but the Valar would not yet suffer him to depart beyond their sight and vigilance, and he was constrained to dwell within the gates of Valmar. But fair seeming were all the words and deeds of Melkor in that time, and both the Valar and the Eldar had profit from his aid and counsel, if they sought it, and therefore in a while he was given leave to go freely about the land. And it seemed to Manwe that the evil of Melkor was cured, for Manwe was free from evil and could not comprehend it. And he knew that in the beginning, in the thought of Iluvatar, Melkor had even as he, and he saw not to the depths of Melkor's heart, and did not perceive that all love had departed from him forever. So now we start to see why Manwe accepted Melkor and thought that he had a change of heart, because Manwe was completely fair and objective in his reasoning, saying, well, Melkor was an Ainur with us. I mean, he was there from the very beginning of creation and the song. And so Manwe has this idea that I am equal with all my brothers and sisters who are the Ainurs, the thought forms. And clearly Melkor is a brother of his, but yet he doesn't quite understand the darkness in Melkor's heart because the hunger and the quest for power has created the love to leave him. He doesn't love his fellow brothers and sisters any longer. He just wants to control. He wants the power that Manwe has. He wants people to bow before him and abase themselves that way. So there we see that difference. And so to understand Manwe, we have to understand Melkor. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to say, because they are yin and yang. And what Manwe is, Melkor is not. And what Manwe is not, Melkor is. So that's how you start to tap into more of the energies of Manwe, which is very good to get in touch with our own light side, even though we can be still aware of our shadow selves, which is really important as well. I'm going to keep going for the flight of the Noldor. So now we move forwards and we see Manwe's actions towards Feanor, the famous Feanor who led the other Noldor elves into the kinslaying of the Teleri elves. And then that caused the only time in history when elves killed one another. And it caused a great sadness in Manwe's heart and in the other Valar, of course. So this is what happened at this point here. Then Feanor swore a terrible oath. His 7 sons leapt straightway to his side and took the selfsame vow together. And red as blood shone their drawn swords in the glare of the torches. They swore an oath which none shall break, and none should take. By the name even of Iluvatar, calling the everlasting dark upon them, if they kept it not. And Manwe they named in witness, and Varda, and the hallowed mountain of Taniquetel, vowing to pursue with vengeance and hatred to the ends of the world Vala, demon, elf, or man, as yet unborn, or any creature, great or small, good or evil, that time should bring forth unto the end of days, whoso should hold or take or keep a Silmaril from their possession. And a Silmaril is kind of like a jewel that was made by the light of the stars. Thus spoke Maedhros and Maglor and Celegorn and Curufin and Carnathir and Amrod and Amros, princes of the Noldor, and many quailed to hear the dreaded words. For so sworn, good or evil, an oath may not be broken, and it shall pursue the oath-keeper and oath-breaker to the world's end. Fingolfin and Turgon, his son, therefore spoke against Feanor, and fierce words awoke, so that once again wrath came near to the edge of swords. But Finifrin spoke softly, as was his wont, and sought to calm the Noldor, persuading them to pause and ponder ere deeds were done that could not be undone. And Oradirth alone of his sons spoke in like matter. Finrod was Turgon his friend, but Galadriel, the only woman of the Noldor to stand that day tall and valiant among the contending princes, was eager to be gone. No oaths she swore, but the words of Feanor concerning Middle-earth had kindled in her heart, for she yearned to see the wide, unguarded lands of Valinor, and to rule there a realm at her own will. Of like mind with Galadriel was Fingolfin's son, being moved also by Feanor's words, though he loved him little, and with Fingon stood as they ever did, Angrod and Aegnor, sons of Finifern, but these held their peace and spoke not against their fathers. At length, after long debate, Feanor prevailed, and the greater part of the Noldor there assembled. He set aflame with the desire of new things and strange countries. Therefore, when Finifern spoke yet again for heed and delay, a great shout went up, "Nay, let us be gone!" And straightway Feanor and his sons began to prepare for the marching forth. Little foresight could there be for those who dared to take so dark a road, yet all was done in overhaste, for Feanor drove them on. Fearing lest in the cooling of their hearts his words should wane and other counsels yet prevail, and for all his proud words he did not forget the power of the Valar, but from Valmar no message came, and Manwe was silent. He would not yet either forbid or hinder Feanor's purpose, for the Valar were aggrieved that they were charged with evil intent to the Eldar, or that any were held captive by them against their will. Now they watched and waited, for they did not yet believe that Feanor could hold the host of the Noldar to his will. So the whole reason why this also started was because you have this whole thing where the elves were living in Valinor with the Valar, and the Valar did not want them to go to Middle-earth and to settle there because they were afraid that they would be killed, and these were their creations, their babies in many ways. So the Valar were not holding the elves against their will, but they were just saying, well, look, you have everything for you in this land. Why do you want to go out and pursue, other land and other territories? But it's because Feanor started telling the other Noldar that they could rule in Middle-earth their own realms and kingdoms without the Valar as the supreme rulers. So it was a complete act of, arrogance in that way of wanting to just have more power, and they didn't want to be under the eye of the Valar anymore. So Manwe was silent, but he was hurt because, the Valar were being accused of keeping them imprisoned, and it was really just an idea of they were just giving everything to their creations because they felt that this was the best gift that they can give them. And indeed, when Feanor began the marshalling of the Noldar for their setting out, then at once dissension arose, for though he had brought the assembly in a mind to depart, by no means all were of mind to take Feanor as king. Greater love was given to Fingolfin and his sons, and his household, and the most part of the dwellers in Tirion refused to renounce him. If he would go with them, and thus at the last as two divided hosts, the Noldar set forth upon their bitter road. Feanor and his following were in the van, but the greater host came behind under Fingolfin, and he marched against his wisdom, because Fingon, his son, so urged him, and because he would not be sundered from his people that were eager to go, nor leave them to rash counsels of Feanor. Nor did he forget his words before the throne of Manwe. With Fingolfin went Finifern also, and for like reasons, but most loath was he to depart. And of all the Noldar in Valinor, who were grown now to a great people, but one tithe refused to take the road. And so for the love that they bore to the Valar, and to Aule, not least, some for the love of Tirion, and the many things that they had made, none for fear of peril by the way. But even as the trumpet sang, and Feanor issued from the gates of Tirion, a messenger came at last from Manwe, saying, against the folly of Feanor shall be set my counsel only. Go not forth, for the hour is evil, and your road leads to sorrow that ye do not foresee. No aid will the Valar lend you in this quest, but neither will they hinder you, for this ye shall know, as ye came hither freely, freely shall ye depart. But thou, Feanor, Finwë's son, by thine oath art exiled. The lies of Melkor thou shalt unlearn in bitterness. Vala he is, thou sayest. Then thou hast sworn in vain, for none of the Valar canst thou overcome now or ever within the halls of Ea, not though Eru, whom thou namest, has made thee thrice greater than thou art. But Feanor laughed, and spoke not to the herald, but to the Noldar, saying, so, Then will this valiant people send forth the heir of their king alone into banishment with his sons only, and return to their bondage? But if any will come with me, I say to them, is sorrow foreboded to you? But in Amen we have seen it. In Amen we have come through bliss to woe. The other now we will try, through sorrow to find joy or freedom at the least. Then turning to the herald, he cried, say this to Manwe Sulamo, High King of Arda. If Feanor cannot overthrow Morgoth, at least he delays not to assail him, and sits not idle in grief. And it may be that Eru had set in me a fire greater than thou knowest, such hurt as at the least will I do for the foe of the Valar, that even the mighty in the Ring of Doom shall wonder to hear it. Yea, in the end they shall follow me. Farewell. And that is how the Noldor became exiled from Valinor, also with the kinslaying, but also this point in trying to go after Morgoth and also have their own kingdoms to rule on Middle-earth. So you saw Manwe's decision. He was trying to be fair, but at the same time, he was also trying to show that, this is your decision, but you will be exiled from Valinor. Now, there is an important part here where we start to see that Manwe, how he basically is able to govern over Arda in this way. So it goes to, of the return of the Noldor, thus Fingon found what he sought, for suddenly above him, far and faint, his song was taken up, and a voice answering called to him. Maedhros it was that song amid his torment. But Fingon climbed to the foot of the precipice where his kinsman hung, and then could go no further, and he wept when he saw the cruel device of Morgoth. Maedhros, therefore, being in anguish without hope, begged Fingon to shoot him with his bow. And Fingon strung an arrow, and bent his bow, and seeing no better hope, he cried to Manwe, saying, O king, to whom all birds are dear, speed now this feathered shaft, and recall some pity for the Noldor in their need. His prayer was answered swiftly, for Manwe, to whom all birds are dear, and to whom they bring news upon Taniquetil from Middle-earth, had sent forth the race of eagles, commanding them to dwell in the crags of the north, and to keep watch upon Morgoth, for Manwe still had pity for the exiled elves. And the eagles brought news of much that passed in those days to the sad ears of Manwe. So now we see this is why you had the giant eagles help Frodo. It's all connected in Tolkien's mythology. He's so brilliant, he pulled it all together. And so the giant eagles were basically the eyes and the ears of Manwe in Valinor. And even though Manwe exiled the Noldor elves, it was not that he did not care about them. He still helped them in their need, as you can see. So that shows you the kind of leader that he was. He's not the type that is so stubborn that lets his emotions become clouded by logic, but that they are in balance with each other. It's absolutely understandable why the Noldor elves shouldn't come back to Valinor after they leave and they declare that they're imprisoned by the Valar. The Valar are like, well, then go, we're not going to try to keep you. And, there's a reason why, but they weren't exiled forever. And we learned that when Ulmo and Manwe kind of partner to create the ships that would bear the elves when they made that choice back to Valinor, which is what Galadriel and many of the elves did at the end of Return of the King, when Frodo finally, got rid of the ring. It was like that final conclusion allowed the exiled elves back. So Galadriel is one of the Noldor elves, and so she kind of represents that closing up of the ties, and also Elrond too. I thought that was mighty wonderful to see Manwe act that way, that that even though the Noldor elves turned away from the Valar, Manwe still answered their prayer very quickly and, helped them with the eagles. Now, here's another part where you see Manwe come in the story of Beren and Luthien. So this is towards the end here of Beren and Luthien, and it says this. The song of Luthien before Mandos was the song most fair that ever in words were woven, and the song most sorrowful that ever the world shall hear. Unchanged, imperishable, it is sung still in Valinor, beyond the hearing of the world, and listening the Valar are grieved. For Luthien wove two themes of words, of the sorrow of the Eldar and the grief of men, of the two kindreds that were made by Iluvatar to dwell in Arda, the kingdom of earth, amid the innumerable stars. And as she knelt before him, her tears fell upon his feet like rain upon the stones, and Mandos was moved to pity, who never before was so moved, nor has been since. And Mandos is one of the Valar that kind of controls the gateways of the afterlife, the halls of Mandos. Keep going. Therefore he summoned Beren, as even as Luthien had spoken in the hour of his death. They met again beyond the western sea, but Mandos had no power to withhold the spirits of men that were dead within the confines of the world after their time of waiting, nor could he change the fates of the children of Iluvatar. He went therefore to Manwe, lord of the Valar, who governed the world under the hand of Iluvatar, and Manwe sought counsel in his inmost thought, where the will of Iluvatar was revealed. These were the choices that he gave to Luthien. Because of her labors and her sorrow, she should be released from Mandos and go to Valamor, there to dwell until the world's end among the Valar, forgetting all griefs that her life had known. Thither Beren could not come, for it was not permitted to the Valar to withhold death from him, which is the gift of Iluvatar to men. But the other choice was this, that she might return to Middle-earth and take with her Beren, there to dwell again, but without certitude of life or joy. Then she would become mortal and subject to a second death, even as he, and ere long she would leave the world forever, and her beauty become only a memory and song. So Manwe here is shown this absolute power in almost allowing elves to choose if they want to remain elves or they want to become mortal and go the pathway of men. And it's a different it's different in terms of where their spirits go and how long they live on Arda. So Manwe has that ability that no other Valar have because he is the closest to the mind of Eru. What this shows is that Eru is not it's not a set idea of what the laws of this world will contain, but that there's this evolution happening as they go, as they learn that their beings can have sorrow and grief and all these things, and then have to make these difficult choices when it comes to love. Then this whole evolution of thought happens within Eru, and then through Manwe, it's decided if an elf wants to go a route that is different than what it was born as, basically. So I thought that was a very interesting point there. And this is where Manwe permits the Noldor to come back to Valinor with a choice. So this is when we see the absolute forgiveness of Manwe, and this is in the voyage of Erendiel. In those days, there was a great building of ships upon the shores of the western sea, and thence in many a fleet the Eldar set sail into the west, and came never back to the lands of weeping and of war. And the Vanyar returned beneath their white banners, and were borne in triumph to Valinor. But their joy in victory was diminished, for they returned without the Silmarils for Morgoth's crown. And they knew that those jewels could not be found or brought together again unless the world be broken and remade. And when they came into the west of the elves of Beleriand, dwelt upon Tol Eressë, the lonely isle that looks both west and east, whence they might come even to Valinor, they were admitted again to the love of Manwe and the pardon of the Valar, and the Teleri forgave their ancient grief, and the curse was laid to rest. Yet not all of the Eldalai were willing to forsake the hither lands, where they had long suffered and long dwelt, and some lingered many an age in Middle-earth. Among those were Círdan the shipwright, and Celeborn of Doriath, with Galadriel his wife, who alone remained of those who led the Noldor to exile in Beleriand. And in Middle-earth dwelt also Gil-galad the High King, and with him was Elrond, half-elven, who chose, as was granted to him, to be numbered among the Eldar. But Elros, his brother, chose to abide with men. And from these brethren alone has come among men the blood of the firstborn, and a strain of the spirits divine that were before Arda. For they were the sons of Elwing, Dior's daughter, Lúthien's son, child of Thingol and Melian, and Eärendil their father was the son of Idril Celbrindal, Torgon's daughter of Gondolin. But Morgoth himself, the Valar, thrust through the door of night, beyond the walls of the world, into the timeless void, and a guard is set forever on those walls, and Eärendil keeps watch upon the ramparts of the sky. Yet the lies that Melkor, the mighty and accursed Morgoth, the power of terror and of hate, sowed in the hearts of elves and men, are a seed that does not die and cannot be destroyed, but ever and anon it sprouts anew and will bear dark fruit even until the latest days. Here ends the Silmarillion. If it has passed from the high and the beautiful to darkness and ruin, that was of old the fate of Arda marred. And if any change shall come, and the marring be amended, Manwe and Varda may know, but they have not yet revealed it, and it is not declared in the dooms of Mandos. So let's get into harnessing the power of Mandos and applying his energies into our life and what it all means. I'll start with this quote, which I found, which I absolutely love. This is from The Lost Tales in Part 1. Lo, Manwe Sulamo, clad in sapphires, rulers of the airs and wind, is held lord of gods and elves and men, and the greatest bulwark against the evil of Melkor. He's the greatest weapon against Melkor. And the idea is that even though Melkor is equal in strength to Manwe in power and might, and even I think Melkor was even given actually the greatest strength, because Eru says mightiest is Melkor. Tolkien is giving us a message that what endures and what is considered the greater strength is goodness of the heart, of the mind, and your intentions to have goodwill towards others. That although Melkor is the mightiest Ainur, Manwe is the most loved. Manwe is the one that services Eru in the greatest way. Therefore, his power is actually stronger if you want to look at it in another perspective and a deeper context as to what he brings forward on Earth in terms of life rather than destruction. So Manwe's other name is Sulamo, which means Blessed One. And the titles of his are King of Arda, Lord of Breath of Arda, King of the Valar, Elder King, Lord of the West, Lord of Aman. And these are all the titles that the elves would call him if they don't want to use his name, Manwe. He lives on top Mount Tanaquil in Valinor, the highest mountain of Arda in the world. The winds and airs are his servants, and he has different Maiar spirits that help control the winds and airs. And all things that fly are his favorite, and things that have wings that are great, like the hawks and the eagles, especially are his spirit messengers, helping to keep watch over others. And you learn that the eagles actually take nest in the mountains around Rivendell so that they can help the Noldor elves, and they are kind of always keeping watch of Arda. Is the eagles. They're really part of Manwe's dominion. And as Melkor is the shadow side of Manwe, Manwe represents within us our light side. The element of air is to symbolize the mind and the lofty higher thoughts that is above the emotional pain body, but is connected to the intuition and is one of the neocortex, the higher mind. This is why also Manwe loved music so much, and that he represented music as much as Ulmo did. But the idea that music and song was important to Manwe is because the neocortex is the higher mind and the part of us that is about the humanities expressed. So art and music and all the self-expressions coming from the soul. That's kind of the higher thoughts and the region of Manwe. As Manwe was powerful as Melkor, but he was kind and he was not seeking for domination. So there's this equality in power, but there is this kindness that is extended that actually makes Manwe stronger in the end, when it all comes down to it. And when you put forth the actions of the two, Manwe comes out stronger. And because he's the most loved, most respected, and successful in the idea of having the darkness not always taking over the light, but by having the small hands do the deeds on Middle Earth to see the great theme of Eru come true. And all the hands of Middle Earth, the elves, the men, the hobbits, they all work together under that theme of Manwe, but first originating from Eru Iluvatar. Manwe represents many positive qualities within ourselves. So rejoice. This is the week to really think about yourself positively. I want you to throw everything else out of your mind, and I want you to really take a look at yourself in a positive light and from a more objective point of view, not so subjective within your emotional body, but an objective point of view, looking at your life and seeing all that you have accomplished and seeing all that you have done so far, and giving yourself a break in a way by noticing those positive qualities within yourself. But I will say, and I love this phrase, that like Manwe, I wish you self-esteem that is so high that you are noble as he is. The idea that nobility is not so connected to the idea of personal status or claim to, fame and to royalty. But nobility is about doing the right thing and making the right choices for others and being a leader in that way. And so when you establish a better sense of self, and you have a healthy self-esteem, and the idea that you can think about yourself in a healthy way, that you can then look at others in a way that you won't be jealous of them, and that you will see them as a peer, as an equal. And this is where Melkor, he fell down. He could not look at his fellow Valar as an equal, but he was jealous of them because he himself was filled of all these darker thoughts. And that's not really a healthy self-esteem. Arrogance and pride and all of that is about kind of dominating over others or controlling others, that's not really what truly a healthy self-esteem is. Manwe represents that part of ourselves that is reaching for really a positive place within ourselves that seeks no external power and is really confident and is really secure in who we are. And we can all kind of harness those powers of Manwe when we really give thought to it and just focus our attention on Manwe. Manwe's powers are to give sovereignty, yet humility to yourself, not arrogance or pride like Melkor, but a true confidence without envy or jealousy towards others. To be reminded of our internal power without the quest for the external power or domination or control over others or a place or seat of power. Manwe was a fair judge as well. He was objective and did not look at opinions of others or himself, but rather what a soul did for the good of the world. And objectivity is a very interesting concept in which it is about ridding yourself of the ego for a moment in time and looking at things from the eyes of the whole. And that's what he was able to do. He would actually put himself into kind of a sleep state for a while and think about something, like a question the other Valar had, reach up into the eyes of Eru, Iluvatar, and look at the world from that point of view. That is objectivity. He is not seeing the world through his subjective perspective. He is seeing the world through the eyes of the whole. And what would the eyes of the whole want? Equal success and expansion and growth for all of the souls equally on earth. This is your state of objectivity where everyone is equal in your mind spiritually, and that you no longer have this subjective opinion of others, but you see everything and all as spiritually equal and deserving of love and care and support, as all life on this planet does. And that is the perspective of objective place where Manwe was able to govern from. You could come to Manwe as anyone. Even Melkor was judged fairly in the idea to give him another chance, believing in the change of heart of Melkor. So once again, it's this objective place where you don't take into consideration, oh, well, that person did something bad, and oh, I don't think they'll change. It is simply applying a general rule of all life and all souls, that all souls evolve, that all life changes and grows. So when you have that rule applied, you see that equally amongst everyone, and you don't judge who doesn't hold to that rule, because that's their choice. And so Manwe was able to see that within Melkor and come from that objective place, although he was not able to really perceive the reality of the heart of darkness of Melkor, because he was trying to be so fair and so objective. And I say this here, but because Manwe was so good, he could not see or comprehend the dark thoughts of Melkor. Only Ulmo and Tolkis could. We ourselves are not objective, and we're not fair all the time, like Manwe. But when we focus our thoughts on him and his qualities, we can then activate our own higher nature within. And we can actually push against that vibration within ourselves and activate that vibration within ourselves. And that is how we align to the frequency of Manwe and what he represents within the collective. One that does seek for anything other than the life you lead. So this is about being content and just being happy in a moment of no questing for power, fame, or success. And in that moment, all hunger for power fades away, giving rise to the internally abundant self that you personally are without want or need. This is what it takes to be truly confident and noble at any state of economic status at any situation in life. It is about being appreciative that you are part of this world, you're breathing, you have what you have, and you're not seeking for something outside of yourself in that very moment, and having confidence and feeling secure that you are happy and you are confident and happy with how your life has turned out in this point. Manwe is the personified higher voice within us all on earth that is connected to the intuition, but instead of deep in the emotions like Ulmo represents, it's somewhere above in the clouds, soaring high in the mental aspect of the self, which is what the air element represents. It is the mental stimulation, the mental aspect of the zodiac. So that is represented in the air element. You see it in Elrond, who gets actually the ring of heavens or air, Vilya. And so you see that this air element that Manwe represents can put you into a place of logical thinking beyond the emotional thinking, because sometimes that's needed. And it is this nice inner balance of the logic and the emotions within you. Manwe sends the message to our rational mind that we choose to crawl sometimes in life, whether we can fly or not. So when we come out of our cocoons and sometimes we're ready to fly, sometimes we tell ourselves from the emotional pain body that we don't have what it takes to spread our wings and really soar. Manwe, when you focus your thoughts on him, this entire week I've been feeling like I've been flying high, because when you focus your thoughts on a energy like Manwe and the archetype that he represents, you cannot help but fly high. And in your life, you feel, just this energy to spread your wings and to soar. And it's about moving through life in a way that's full of less resistance than you might when you're crawling on earth. Flying is about overcoming obstacles that you might not necessarily be able to overcome while walking, because you're walking, you have to walk around rocks and you have to walk through different parts of earth. Whereas flying, you're just in the sky. There are no obstacles to really move around. You can fly over anything. So keep that idea that flying in your life, not physically, but mentally flying in your life, means soaring and overcoming all obstacles that enter into your life in an ease kind of way, where you just flow with things and you're able to believe in yourself to overcome the obstacles firsthand. It's about confidence and belief in yourself, and a self that is higher in thought, that reaches out and touches all things. Manwe is like a benevolent god that does not destroy its creations. Now, this, I think, was so important. Many people do not like the way that the other books of the Abrahamic texts were talking about God, and the idea that, okay, so he caused a great flood. He destroyed Lot with a sandstorm or meteorite shower, whatever the story is. And so there's all this like natural destruction that is connected to the anger of the God in the Abrahamic texts. And Tolkien purposely chose to make this God more benevolent in the way that there is no destruction that Manwe ever does, but there is a hiding from immature eyes that are not yet ready to see. The hiding of Valinor comes when Manwe realizes that the beings on Arda, the elves that he so loved, was not yet ready to come back to Valinor, or not able to appreciate what Valinor really represented. Manwe never destroys, only fights against Melkor, but never destroys any of his creations, never destroys the land of Arda. You don't see that, but there's a hiding of Valinor that it becomes cloaked, and it's not able to get to easily unless you have those special elven ships that you can sail on. And I say this as in the example of Valinor being hidden away as an invisible fog in the west. Only when invited can you see it again, and only when Manwe made way for the Noldor, the exiles, to find Valinor again, did he allow ships to bring them. They had to go back to Valinor on their own through a actual choice, and then the ships bore them to Valinor. But Manwe does not destroy any of his beings. He only hides things that are not yet ready for, they are not yet ready for, as a very fair judge of character. And the idea that he understands that maybe things are not yet for the eyes of these particular beings, but when they come into their own wisdom, from their own life experience, then they will be ready again for Valinor once again. Sometimes in our quest for power and control over others and our own lives, we seek to destroy others mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. This is the wrath of God that we see. And what Manwe has taught me personally is that you can always create without destroying something else. You just create alongside, or you create on top, or you simply ignore and move forward into your own creation. You do not have to destroy others' creations in order to put forth your creations in this world. And that's what Manwe really represents, is this ability to create without destruction. When we are thoughtful and direct our thoughts to Manwe, we can remember the benevolence shown and not destroy, but simply pull away and catch ourselves before a moment of weakness, like Melkor. Manwe is connected to the phrase of taking the higher road, seeing things from a higher perspective, and especially with Varda, his wife, he can see even further. And she represents space, the place of stars and celestial bodies. So when the sky joins with the space, then his sight is increased and his perspective is even higher. With thoughts on Manwe, we can learn to fly, open our wings and fly instead of crawling through life, to not fear to take a leap of faith into the abyss and feel secure that we will float or fly gently when we put our will towards something and logically understand it is good for all, or carries the qualities of goodness in the idea that it seeks to better life for all instead of harming or destroying. Manwe's powers may be hard if you don't take the first step of belief in the self and in all things found in nature and within the cosmos. It's hard to harness Manwe's powers unless you first take that step in believing in yourself. So you need to believe in yourself, take that time to see all the mistakes that you made as not mistakes, but actual stepping stones to get you to this place that you are today, and to congratulate yourself for the success that you have made, and to really have that sense of self-esteem, but still be humble and not arrogant above others. And it's about letting go and embracing the higher self, letting go of the ego. And I wrote this, which Manwe represents a lot of love in the Silmarillion. The elves loved him. Manwe is said a lot of times to love the elves and to love the men. And so you see that Manwe represents love, that he is a loving God, or a loving king of the Valar. And so I wanted to visualize this in the idea that it's about letting go of your ego and having your higher self actually embrace your ego, if that makes sense. Trying to tell you from above that everything will be all right, and you don't have to fight so much. You don't have to struggle and defend yourself or hold on too tightly. That the higher self can relax the ego. And that is what you could start to visualize, is that kind of that higher self within yourself hugging your ego and saying, there, it'll be all right. When we find ourselves in a state of oneness and in love with all things, we are aligning to the vibrations and frequency of Manwe. Although it may not be a constant state in one's life, one moment of this feeling of bliss will stay with your subconscious and help you remember in times of need. So even if you just tap into Manwe once and you feel the love for all the beings equally, even Melkor, that stays with you and you can remember it once again when in need. It is a place above the emotional pain body within the quantum fields of consciousness, aware truth of you. You can get to this place with surrender of your ego to a greater power than just you on earth, but within you and connected to all other souls and all things within nature. Because Manwe symbolizes this noble state of being, here are some ways that you can get there. Meditation and reflecting daily can really help you. Journaling or simply thinking within a quiet, sacred space of nature can help you. You can find the still voice of the higher self that does not worry in that moment, as is totally present as the ultimate observer of your life. There's a reason why Tolkien wrote that Manwe was like the eyes of Middle Earth, and in the eagles were able to keep watch over everything. That is the ultimate observer idea within quantum physics, in the idea of there is an ultimate observer that is able to arrange matter, and the ultimate observer is said to reside in a consciousness that is higher than this earth consciousness reality, but is above, somewhere in space-time. And it is about watching your life from that perspective that puts you into that place of the ultimate observer over your life. And that's Manwe. He is the ultimate observer. This state will come more naturally without meditation as you have become a master in the art of being with your thoughts and not letting the thoughts control you. Reflecting on them and observing them objectively from every angle, on seeing consequences of actions as particular points of space-time that open up to you for you to observe as past, present, and future. This is the far-reaching sight of Manwe and how closest to the mind of Eru he is. This is the level of insight you too can reach and be at with trust in yourself, discipline, and mastery over illuminating the shadow self so that it no longer is in the shadows and can be dealt with fairly and justly with your light side. Giving yourself very easy life goals to abide to in the idea of say what you mean, be honest, and be forthright, and be a fair judge to others and yourself, and don't over-concern yourself with lower thoughts and energies. Always remember to fly high. Here's a mental exercise that you can do that I wrote down. Project your thoughts or visualize yourself as free flying like a bird in the sky, untouchable by anything, and deciding where to eventually land. Imagine yourself flying with angelic wings or beautiful fairy wings that only grow on your back because you embraced the goodness of your own soul. It is about seeing the wholeness and unity and purity of your soul, allowing those wings to grow and you to soar in life and through it, through all obstacles that you may overcome. There are some tools, crystal tools, that can aid in your meditations and in your altars or whatever ways that you want to try to harness these types of energies of Manwe. If you just feel really close to Manwe's energies and you absolutely love Manwe, then the crystals that will help you, I have wrote down 3. There could be more, but these are the main ones that I felt that their energies will really amplify the energies of Manwe within you. Sapphire, of course. Sapphire is one that Tolkien described as the eyes of Manwe, and the kind of way that Manwe dresses in terms of the raiment that he takes when he takes his semi-physical form. And sapphires they're precious gemstones, but they can be more unpolished and raw. So you can find them actually fairly inexpensively when you get the unpolished raw version of sapphire. But the polished cut ones, those are expensive, and you can find that in jewelry, in crowns. It has been a famous jewel to be used by royalty within our human timeline for a particular reason, what it represents. Sapphire energies will amplify the nobility within yourself and guide you towards higher goals and beautiful thoughts for all. This is your sovereign nature that will be amplified as a leader to others, or as just simply sovereign being within yourself. It has been a favorite gemstone among rulers, and the color blue symbolizes within our collective authority. That's what that particular frequency and vibration represent when we look at blue in the light spectrum. It's been known as authority, carrying that frequency to help increase fair-mindedness as a leader and ground you with logic and your powers of observation. So purple will symbolize royalty, and blue symbolizes authority. So those two go very well together, and there's different levels to that, because you could be a leader and not necessarily royalty, but you can be a leader to others and start, your own types of organizations, or be a manager, or simply be a leader to yourself, being in more control with the runaway thoughts that you might have. You can look at it from that aspect as well. Now, I did add that star sapphire would be a perfect combination for Varda and Manwe's energies, allowing for more outer and insight to be achieved through the vibrations of star sapphire. The next crystal I have is lapis lazuli. Now, this is one of those crystals that I have yet bought. I was not ready yet. I felt the energies were too powerful to hold within my house or within my hand, I guess. So I never actually bought lapis lazuli, but I think I might be ready for it now. It's an ancient favorite of kings of Egypt and of the ancient civilizations. It is known as a crystal of high vibrations that help open the cosmos in the gateway of ascended masters and kings and queens. Blue and gold veins within the lapis lazuli symbolize the divine and freedom to be your own creative being with nothing to rule over you except your own heart and mind. Meditating with this crystal aids in astral traveling to higher planes to meet ascended spirits and higher guides. And it is a fully detoxifying crystal in the way that it helps clear your mind and really puts you on a whole new path. So lapis lazuli, that's one I'm going to have to buy. Celestite is the last one that I came up with. Celestite is a very light blue-gray kind of color, and it can be in a geode. It's really pretty. I have one as an egg shape, and it's connected to the angelic realms of consciousness. So it represents wholesomeness and goodness, and it amplifies innocence of mind and purity of heart. It's very healing for one who does not believe in themselves yet. and you will feel a warm embrace of energy from angelic spirits like the harmonious Ainur or Valar, who loved their creation so much and deeply. Celestite helps promote relaxation and decreases stress, aiding in many healings of the body, and especially good for eyes and ears, it's known to be. And Manwe was said to represent the eyes and also the ears, and with Varda, even more eyes and ear power. So this helps to eliminate any kind of eye and ear problems, and it eliminates toxins from the body and repairs at a cellular level. It's very vibrational stone that amplifies the higher consciousness within. So those are the tools that can help you get in touch with Manwe's energies. So I hope that you enjoyed this and learned more about Manwe, and will join on March 9th for the special sacred moon ritual. It will be private for our members that are going to join in our organization, so we can create a nice sacred space. But you can absolutely use all of these ways of getting in touch with Manwe, and simply just reading the Silmarillion yourself and going through the way that Manwe behaves, and that will get your focus onto Manwe. So I hope you all have a beautiful day and you enjoyed this, and I will see you all in the next video.